Right now, look up. The sky is blue. You've known that word since before you can remember. Blue. The sky, the sea, the first crayon you reached for. But here's something almost impossible to believe. The people who built the first great civilizations, the Greeks, the Egyptians' neighbors, the writers of the oldest books on earth, may never have called the sky blue. Not because they couldn't see it, because in a strange way the color didn't exist yet. You'll see blue 10,000 times today and never think about it. But blue is the last color humanity learned to name, and the story of how we got the word is the story of how a color can hide in plain sight. So why was the world missing its most common color? The answer changes everything you think you know about your eyes, your language, and what it means to see. It starts with a poem. In 1858, a British man named William Gladstone, later one of the most powerful prime ministers in British history, but then just obsessed with Homer, sat down and counted colors in the Iliad and the Odyssey, the oldest stories in Western literature, and he found something he couldn't explain. Homer describes the sea as wine dark. He calls it that again and again. He calls oxen wine-colored. He calls honey green and sheep violet. Across thousands of lines, describing a world ringed by the Mediterranean, Homer uses the word blue essentially never. Gladstone's first thought was the obvious one. Maybe the ancient Greeks were colorblind, but that wasn't it. Because it wasn't just the Greeks. This wasn't one poet with bad eyes. This was something much bigger. In the 1860s, a German scholar named Lazarus Geiger picked up the thread and went looking through the oldest texts of other cultures, the Hindu Vedas, the Hebrew Bible, the Quran, ancient Icelandic sagas, early Chinese. He found the same hole, everywhere, vivid, detailed descriptions of the world, and almost no blue. The ancient Hebrew Bible never describes the sky as blue. None of them did. And then Geiger noticed something even stranger. The colors didn't go missing at random. Across completely unrelated languages, color words appeared in almost the same order. First, every language has words for dark and light, black and white. Then, the very first real color, always, is red. Then yellow and green arrive, and blue is always, always last, the last hue to get a name, as if every culture on Earth, separately, walked the same path and arrived at blue at the very end. In 1969, two researchers at Berkeley, Brent and Paul K., tested this across dozens of languages and confirmed the pattern in their landmark book, Basic Color Terms. The sequence was real. Blue is humanity's final color. But why blue? Why would the color of the sky and the sea, the two biggest things our ancestors ever looked at? Because blue almost doesn't exist anywhere you can hold it. Think about it. There are no blue animals you'd meet in the wild. Almost no blue plants, no blue food. Blue is in the sky, but you can't grab the sky. It's in the ocean, but scoop the water into your hands and it runs clear. For most of human history, blue was never a thing. It was only ever a distance. The one major civilization that did make a blue dye, the Egyptians, were also the first to have a real word for it. You name what you can make and hold. This wasn't a color they were missing. It was a color that was barely there to be found. And that leads to the most unsettling question of all. If they had no word for blue, did they actually see it? In Namibia, there's a people called the Himba, whose language groups colors very differently from ours. It has no separate word for blue. Researchers, including the psychologist Jules Davidoff, showed them a circle of green squares with one single blue square hidden among them. To you, that blue square would jump out instantly. Many of the Himba struggled to pick it out at all. But show them a ring of greens with one barely different shade of green, a difference most of us can't even see, and they spotted it at once, because their language had a word for that shade, and not for blue. Their eyes worked exactly like yours. The light hitting them was identical. But what they noticed, what rose up out of the background and became a thing, followed the words they'd been given. This wasn't about the eyes, it was about the names. So look up at the sky again. That blue you see so effortlessly, it isn't just light landing on you. It's a word handed to you in childhood that taught your mind to lift one color out of the endless wash of the world and call it something. Your ancestors stood under the same sky for 300,000 years, the same light, the same eyes. And many of them looked straight up and saw something they didn't quite have a name for. We gave a name to the color of the sky. And only then, finally, did all of us truly see it. And most of us never even knew it was the last thing we learned to look at.